Hello readers and writers, I'm MJ. Today we're going to be looking through some Am I the A-Hole posts, book edition. So I've probably been watching too many of these videos on YouTube, and I decided to see if there were any of these posts that actually dealt with books, and I was very surprised to find that there are actually a lot of them. And so if you enjoy this, then I will do a part 2. Okay, so the first one is Am I the A-Hole? Husband ruins book buying. My husband and I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old who both go to daycare up the street. The daycare hosts a book fair, and I told my husband when we picked them up today I want to buy them each a book of their choice. He said fine. The boys picked out their books, and while we were in line to pay, our 3-year-old changed his mind and wanted a different book. He ran into a little friend from his class who was also getting this book, and I thought, that is great. He wants to get the same book. How cute. I said, that's okay, I'll buy the first choice for myself, and so we would end up having to buy 3 books. My husband told my 3-year-old he couldn't buy his second choice, then told me I couldn't buy it either. I knew this was going to be a meltdown, and I didn't want to argue in front of the cashier, embarrassing as it was. I said okay and paid, and the cashier is looking at me like, WTF is this guy's problem? My 3-year-old bursts into tears, and husband picks him up and carries him out. I was pissed. I wanted to have a good experience buying books, and instead the memory is traumatic. For me too. My husband apologized, but he does this stuff all the time. Well, the problem here obviously isn't the books. And being in a relationship that was not the most healthy, I think this is definitely some red flags that the original poster needs to pay attention to, because if this really is a repeated pattern, then either they need to go to therapy to work it out, or they need to figure out what's the best way, because this isn't going to be healthy for the children growing up in an environment where they can't have stable rules, because they were told one thing and then the other parent said something else, and that's going to be problematic for these children growing up not being able to know what rules they can count on. Also for this poster, I mean, obviously they need to work through some things also, because why does their husband get to have the final say in everything? They definitely should be coming to this at a more unified approach. So hopefully they can, get some counseling, get some outside help, sit down and talk it out. But if it is signs of a much larger problem, then maybe consider the health of the relationship. Okay, so this next one I think is going to be very interesting to see what you all think and what your take on this is. I think it's extremely relevant to the book community in general, and especially when those of us that read a lot of indie published books where we potentially know the author. Alright, so it's titled Would I Be the A-Hole If I Gave a Bad Review of My Friend's Book? So a while back my friend wrote a novel and got it self-published. I brought a copy of the novel to support them and read it. The book was terrible. It reads like amateur fan fiction with blatantly copy-pasted elements from other books and TV shows in the same genre, fantasy. My friend is not a native English speaker, and that is obvious fact when you read their book. The prose of the novel jarring and awkward to read. The actual plot and characters are amateurish, even in comparison to published books that I find to be terrible, like Twilight, for example. obviously a snob. Anyways, alright, moving on. My friend is very, very proud of the book and wants to get it properly published. They're properly published. Okay. They're extremely enthusiastic that everyone should read it, but in a good-willed, non-pushy way, and gets very excited when someone does. Everyone who's read the book agrees that it's badly written, but lies when they tell my friend, since it's clear it would hurt them if they told the truth. Like with most self-published works, they're relying on their friends and family to buy it. So feedback is a lot more personal. I didn't say anything after I read it because I didn't want to lie to them. They've already sunk a lot of money into getting it self-published in the first place. They also seem quite naive about how the publishing industry works and are taking some pretty big missteps in that regard. It's like they're just following the how not to get published rules. I'm also a writer and semi-professional at it with a high degree in the field. Harsh but constructive criticism is part of the game. I really feel that someone needs to just tell them this isn't working, here's why, before they sink more time and money into it. They want pay to have merchandise made. However, I know that telling them will really hurt their feelings, so I was going to write an anonymous review online, the coward's option, I know. And on the flip side, if they want to spend more time and money on this, then why should I stop them? Perhaps they, against my strong beliefs, do get it published and it becomes a bestseller. Stranger things have happened. So, would I be the a-hole if I wrote an anonymous review of the book, or should I just let things play out? Also, if you see any spelling, grammar mistakes in this post, please don't say, hey, OP's being a hypocrite. Being inside all the time because of the current situation is destroying my brain, and I'm not trying to turn this Reddit post into a career. Well, I have thoughts. Obviously, some of my thoughts leaked out while I was reading the post. But if you want to share your opinion of me before I go off on my opinion, put it down in the comments below. So, obviously, the original poster is very anti-self-publishing. They said it's not like, you know, what does she say? Or they say, properly published. That's what they said. Because they want to get it properly published. So right now they're already saying self-publishing is invalid. So I don't know if this is the best book ever written. I think if it's self-published, the original poster is going to not like it because they don't feel like self-publishing is a valid route. So there's that hypocrisy and that judgment on this also. In addition, like, I almost feel like a sense of jealousy. Like, well, I'm a writer, I'm doing it the right way, therefore, how can they just go do this shortcut and self-publish it and have it, like, them think that they're going to be good? Again, I haven't read the book, so it could be good or not good, but just because this original poster didn't like it doesn't mean somebody else is not going to like it. Take their judgment of Twilight. There's so many different opinions of Twilight, but Twilight is a bestseller. So that's like an irrefutable fact. Whether you think it's poorly written or not, that's almost not the point with Twilight. I think this original poster definitely has their own judgments and feelings on here. And they're definitely going into this with those judgments and opinions and to just trash the book. I think if they wrote an anonymous review online instead of talking to their friend, that they are absolutely a coward. It's the horrible way to go. It would be detrimental to the writer. Also, they're just relying on family friends like every self-published novel. Are you kidding me? Okay. Deep breath. Moving on. Or moving past that. So yeah, I think the original poster is coming from a place of not understanding about self-publishing, not thinking that it is a valid option, as well as a sense of jealousy. I do think constructive criticism could be very helpful, but is it this original poster's place? Because they bought the book on their own to be supportive, that's great. The writer did not sit and say, hey, I want to have a constructive conversation with you about this book. This original poster may not be a safe person to have that conversation with, or they may be a crappy writer, and the original poster may not actually value their opinion. So I would say that they should go have an initial conversation with, hey, I read your book, would you like to talk about some of the things I see with it? And the original poster may be like, yeah, I would love that. And if they could have that conversation in actually constructive criticism, then that's great. If it's just going to be this original poster's judgment telling them how self-publishing isn't valid and they're not doing it the right way, then I don't think that's going to be helpful for anyone. But what do you think? Let's see what the comments said. YTA, if you write an anonymous review instead of just having a conversation with your friend, either have an honest convo or don't say anything at all. And then, okay, this one says, YTA, someone probably does, and then quote, someone needs to just tell them this isn't working, here's why, before they sink more time and money into it. But do they? I mean, do they? How many people have told us as self-published authors that we just need to give it up, that we just need to move on and not believe in ourselves because we're not doing it the right way? But I have met some amazing people and read some amazing books because people are following their dream and doing it this route. So, without having read this book, I'm not going to be the one that says someone needs to sit down and tell them that they need to not do this, because maybe it is actually a great book. Maybe it has some things that needs to be revised or could be revised, because there's definitely books that could be need to be fleshed out. There's grammar issues, they don't read well and they need to be fleshed out. And then there's books that they just don't vibe with me and they don't need to change. I could give constructive criticism, but that doesn't mean my constructive criticism is right. Okay, finishing what they said. Someone probably does, but not you, and not in an anonymous review. You're in your capacity as friend here, not your capacity as semi-professional writer with a high degree in the field. And as a friend, you need to just keep quiet unless asked for your opinion. Yes, thank you. Sometimes you just have to step back and let things be. And this other one, YTA, if you aren't willing to offer an honest critique face-to-face, you won't be able to help them. An anonymous critique would be hurtful, but unlikely to provide any meaningful help. Exactly. Reviews aren't for the writer. Reviews are for readers. And that doesn't mean that the writer's going to even see that, but even if so, like, they're not going to take the opinion of some anonymous person on the internet the same way they're going to take the opinion of someone who is truly their friend or someone they truly see as someone in the field. Once again, I question the original poster because whether they're just full of themselves or not, to be honest. Alright, let's go on to the next one. There's more comments, but I think I've spoken on that one enough, and I really just want to see what your thoughts are on it. Especially because so many of us, like, I know I read a lot of indie books, and hopefully all of you all are as well. So I think we have we specifically have opinions that we've formed and we've delved into leaving and how we leave reviews for indie authors, for people that we know personally. And I personally am of the thing that just because a book isn't for me doesn't mean it's not for somebody else. Unless the book is problematic or has major issues. So when I leave a review for an indie author, I try to be an honest review. Well, I do an honest review, but from the perspective that I may not always be the reader for this book. So I read a lot of indie authors that are very romance based, and that's just not my thing. But that doesn't mean it's a bad book, it just means that's not my thing. So I'll put that in there, like, I may not have jived with this, but y'all might. So here's the spice level, here's the relationship level, so that the other readers can make their own opinions about whether this book is for them. And some things that don't work for me are what other people are looking for in a book. So if there is what I think are structural issues or writing issues, I put that in there. If I say, hey, there's a lot of fragmented sentences in this book, I will throw that in the review. I throw that in the review for traditionally published books because that's not something unique to indie authors. I don't think traditional publishing has as high standards that we think it does anymore. In fact, I think a lot of indie books have higher standards because we put so much work into it to make sure it's right, where traditional publishing doesn't quite have that safety nets anymore. And then yet the authors are going into it thinking they're going to get that. I know I have a lot of really strong opinions, but I think it's a very important topic for what we are, and just the general sentiment about self-published books and whether or not they're valid is still a conversation that's going on so much in the book community. Obviously, I think self-published books are valid because that's how my books made it into the world. Alright, on to the next one. Am I the a-hole for ruining my brother's book? Oh, this one. Trigger warning for physical harm of books. Just so you know. Okay, so my 21 female brother, 18 male. So I guess the OP is 21 female. I don't know why gender is so important, but okay. And their brother's 18 and male. Has a collection of books. He has been collecting since he was around 10. Nice. He reads almost every day and has 2 large bookshelves in his room. I've recently started trying to read more, and I saw a book recommendation online. I noticed my brother reading the same book a few days earlier, and instead of buying one online, I thought I'd ask him if I could borrow his. That's nice that she asked. He said he'd finish reading it and go ahead, but just return it when finished. There was no problem with this on either end. Anyways, I was reading the book in the living room. My brother came in, no problem. I folded the page over to keep the page. As I was doing this, he looked over and started shouting at me for bending the page. He grabbed the book from me and stormed upstairs and slammed his door. I followed him to see why it was such a big problem, but he continued to scream at me for ruining his books. I've always done this with books, and I don't understand why it's bad. I get that he likes his books, but geez. It's not your property. I know that there's readers that fold over their pages, and if you do that, and if that's your choice, that is your choice. I write in my books, not every book, but in the ones I feel the need to, I write right in there. To me, they're like a journal. So someone could go back in and see my thoughts while I was reading it. Other people could not imagine that, or if they annotate it, they actually like put post-it notes. Complete respect for that. I would not go get somebody else's book and write in it. Absolutely not. I would like read it with gloves on. Well, not really, because that's supposed to be bad for books, actually. But I would read it very carefully, away from food, like totally respect for the book. The original poster, no respect. It's damaging her brother's books. But it gets more. Okay. Edit. Thank you all for the comments. They were actually helpful. I didn't think this would blow up, but yeah, I'm a complete AH. clearing up some things. My brother is autistic, so that's why he reacted the way he did. Your brother is autistic. You borrowed his book. First of all, kudos to your brother to be willing to allow you to borrow his property while he's autistic. I don't. Can't handle it. Barely can share books with my kid with books that I know are not mine. Like, if I am reading the same book as my kid, it's not my book. It's my kid's book. That way I don't have to worry about it. So kudos to your brother for even allowing you to borrow it in the first place. But then you're not thinking, hey, I'm going to go damage my 18-year-old autistic brother's stuff. Okay. I'm not excusing my actions, but I genuinely didn't know, and I have since apologized, and I will be buying him a new book and getting myself some bookmarks as well. Wonderful. I do like that the original poster took this in, realized why it actually was a big deal. I mean, okay, it's not the end of the world, but for book lovers, I mean, that's pretty heinous. So we've kind of seen from the edits some of the responses, but I'm going to go ahead through and read through some of them. From one dog ear to another, YTA. What your choice to do with a personal book, dog ear, write notes, crack the spine, is not okay to do it in a borrowed book, especially if you know your brother collects books. Buy him a new copy. Oh, and then someone followed up to that. In case it's not clear, OP, folding the corners down actually weakens the paper at the fold. If your brother is a real collector, things like that can lessen the value of the book, in addition to upsetting your brother. Added, I work at a library. We don't have rare, valuable books, but folding is one of those things that makes the book less appealing, especially when people turn down every third page and don't fold it back. I'm one of those people who ends up unfolding all the pages. And then someone else says, your YTA, from your response is clear you do not treasure books as much as your brother. If you are borrowing someone else's belongings, you should be treating it better. Don't dog-ear the books, and don't open the book so wide that it creases the spine. I wonder if the brother is going to let her borrow any more books after this. But it does seem like original poster definitely took this in and learned her lesson, and hopefully, I mean, she's like still young, only 21, so hopefully this is a lesson that she can take in as she potentially has other relationships throughout her life, because something like this is going to come up again, even if it's not books. I did a lot of comments for that, but I think we get the gist of it. Alright, next one. Oh, okay. Am I the a-hole for reading a book to my son? So I, 33 female, and my husband, 34 male, had an argument about the book I read to our 7-year-old son. I'm using a throwaway account because I don't like posting on my main. The book I read to him is called Mumiland Midwinter. It is a book by Finnish writer and illustrator Trove Jansson. I was born and raised in Finland. I grew up in the Mumins. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, I'm sorry. And I really want to be part of my son's life too, but when my husband found out about it, he got really mad. He said that the illustrations were too scary for kids, and that he had done some research on Trove Jansson and found out she was queer. I asked him what was wrong with being queer, and he said nothing is wrong with being queer, but people should stop showing things made by queer people to kids. I got really mad at him for saying something like that. I felt that it was very homophobic for him to say. Yeah, it is. So I got mad at him and we had a big argument. I told him that I wanted our son to be more connected to the Finnish culture and heritage, and that Mumins are a big part of it. He told me that he doesn't care and that he would not allow it since the Finnish culture would turn him into a homosexual. Wow. When he said that, I exploded and kicked him out of the apartment. I told him he's not allowed to come back until I've sorted my feelings out, and that he could stay with his parents in the meantime. I felt so confused and angry at him. He's never said anything like that in the 11 years we've dated, and I'm starting to wonder if I married someone that has put on a fake personality of some sort. This all happened yesterday, and I haven't talked to him since. I told one of my friends about it, and she said that I overreacted, and it isn't that serious. So now I'm here to ask, am I the a-hole? Well, I think 11 years and no other situation has led you to question this makes me wonder what the trigger was. Like, if there was nothing else preceding this, that doesn't quite seem right to me unless there's something else that happened. And maybe it's just all the stuff in the news lately, all the homophobia going around. Maybe the husband had some sort of experience that caused him to lash out. I don't know. It seems like there's got to be some sort of trigger for this behavior, or it was already there and the original poster just was like not seeing it until it kind of became connected to her culture. But like, 7 years old, and this is the first time that she's sharing the culture with her son. That's sad, honestly. But yeah, like, obviously the reaction of the husband is inappropriate from two ways. One, to know that your spouse has this culture that is part of your son's heritage, and so he has a right to learn about it. But then also, like, this homophobia that got expanded, like, obviously that isn't okay, and to bring that and put that discrimination onto the child as well. And like, I don't get this concept that reading a book that has nothing to do with sexuality, I haven't read the book so I don't know what it's about, but from the context it seems like it's just a children's book, but just because someone happens to be gay, it's not gonna, like, it's not kudos, it doesn't catch. Like, what the heck? Alright, so let's go to the comments for this one. So the first one is NTA. So you just found out that your life partner is homophobic and also against you sharing your heritage with your child because he thinks it is unfit. These conflicts of interest are not going to diminish because you kicked him out temporarily. He has now made his feelings known, and it is up to you to decide if these facts about your life partner are deal breakers for you. Clearly, these are views that he has kept to himself until now, and he doesn't sound open to discussion. This is who he is. The ball is in your court. I wish you luck and hope you make good decisions for both yourself and your child. And someone responded to that, this: many people only discover their life partner's true nature once child rearing comes into play. OP's partner is the kind of person who believes reading a book can turn their kids homosexual. What do you think he'd be like as a father if their child grows up to be gay or trans? Exactly. I read the Moomings as a kid, and while I did grow up to be queer, I can assure OP that it has a lot more to do with watching Xena than reading any Moomoon book. I don't think Xena even made you gay. Just, I mean, made you realize you were gay, because I get that. I think this other one has a good point. So, given how many people in the arts have likely been and are queer, your husband would be denying your child a whole wealth of experience. Plus, I loved the Moomins when I was a kid. 100% NTA. Edit: I'm actually gay, but doubt very much the Moomins were responsible. I think this definitely has a lot of connection to people who are queer, so they're definitely responding. And now I really want to go check out this book, because apparently everyone's read it but me. I mean, not everyone, but it seems like something I should go pick up. But I don't know, I'm still stuck that 11 years and this never had come up until this point. That just doesn't seem like, I mean, I get letting down the guard, but 11 years and 7 years of having a child together? I don't know, there's gotta have been other red flags, but this is a huge one, like, a huge one. Even if the OP was okay with him being homophobic, which I would hope not, to not be allowed to share your Finnish culture, that's not okay for yourself or your son. That's not your house. Like, you can't even be yourself, and that is not okay. So I hope they work through this or find a way to move past this in the best interest of their child. Oh, okay. On a slightly lighter note, Would I be the a-hole if I refused to read the book my boyfriend suggested for book club, even though he'll read mine? So this one says, one of my female 26 2023 New Year's goals is to read more. My boyfriend, 27 male, is an avid reader, and he suggested that we form a book club. Two people a book club do not make. It just means reading each other's books. The overall goal would be to read one book a month together. I choose one for the odd-numbered months, and he chooses for the even-numbered months. The overall problem is this. When I recommend something, books, TV shows, etc., I think it is something that he'll like, or we'll both like. He admitted that when he shares the similar things with me, he does it because he likes it, not because he thinks I will. In this case, the problem is his book choice. He shared with me books he's read in the past, and they are of no interest to me. He himself has said they are dense, long, and difficult to understand. Not really my thing. I recently fell back in love with reading after a long hiatus, and I fear I may lose motivation for reading if I'm forcing myself to read books he suggests. Would I be the a-hole if I tell him I don't want to read his books? No, read what you want. There you go. I hear, like, a lot about how different genders approach situations, and obviously I, being agender, don't like put a lot of stock in gender, but I do put a lot of stock in, I don't want to discount other people's genders, but my brain just doesn't think about gender in the same way as a lot of people does, and never has. And I think, but I think it allows me to see how society, like, let me phrase this, but how society allows different genders to act, I think, is influencing what's happening in this relationship. So women in society are expected to be giving. They're expected to always think about others, and I think that's happening in this dynamic. So the female partner is, you know, trying to think about them as a whole, but the male partner doesn't necessarily have the expectation in society, and so he's like, cool, I want to read this, let's read it. To me, it seems like they should just disband this book club, or if they really, really want to keep it going, to change the rules. So they both have to agree on books that they both want to read. So they make a list of books out ahead of time, or every month they pick on the book that they both agree to and go about it that way. If it's really supposed to be a way for them to bond together, then they both should be making the selection, not individually choosing. If it's just to get the original poster to read more books, it seems like it's already been accomplished. She said she'd fallen back in love with reading, and it should just stop. It almost seems like, I don't know, like controlling to me. And that may not have been the intent, but it's like, she's like, oh, I want to read more. And so then her partner's like, oh, well, you know, we'll read together what I want to read. And it's like, oh, like, I don't know, maybe it's like a supportive way he's thinking of, like, helping her, but it's like misguided. Because, I don't know, I think a better way could be to do just reading time together, so that they could just be like, hey, let's have an evening where we sit down and read for 30 minutes together, or this is the schedule in our day where we just read next to each other. And it's not a matter of what they're reading, it's just that they're spending time reading and supporting that habit, since they both seem to like reading. Oh, that's my thoughts. Let's see what other people said. 2 people reading a book each month isn't a book club. Exactly. It's book thoughts. Nice. You read what you like. He should read what he likes. Do not make reading a punishment. Disband the club. Nah, ditch the book club and just read. Oh, not a-hole? I think so. Alright, NAH, librarian here. Reading takes a lot of effort. It does. And if you're just getting back into the swing of things, it's probably best you don't restart your journey with homework. Yes, agreed. Also, a month to read anything over 400 plus pages may be too big of a task. Yeah, like, if it's like these dense epic fantasies, like Wheel of Time, or, I don't know, the one that starts with an M that I haven't read yet. Like, And especially if you don't like that stuff, or you haven't been reading for a while, I can imagine like coming back into that. You're just gonna not like reading it again. I mean, I like that stuff, but even I can't read that all the time. Oh, also book clubs also follow themes. In 1 month you don't read a romance novel and the next you read Civil War history. Even if you were gung-ho about this club, reading thick, long nonfiction books after coming out of a gentle coming of age will become daunting. My advice, don't do a book club, read at your own pace. I don't remember it being nonfiction. I just remember it being dense and long, but maybe it was there. There we go. This one says, why don't you each of you read your own books each month if you can't agree? Problem solved. Not NaH. And someone said audiobook, which I mean is good, but that's not necessarily going to solve the underlying issue. Audiobooks still can be long and daunting, and for some people, especially if you're just getting back into reading, that could be a whole other, like, that could not be the solution. I know some people have to like transition into audiobooks, so especially if the original poster hasn't read in a while, I don't necessarily think that is going to potentially be the solution. Alright, this is getting long. I have some others that I pulled, but I'm going to save them. If you like this, then let me know. There's definitely some more out there. I still have some more on my phone saved, so we can go over them. Was this interesting? Was it not? I would be glad to do a part 2 because I think it amazed me how much finding posts about books can do so many different variables and tell so much about people. I feel like I should say something profound here and I don't have anything to say, so I'm just going to sign off. And remember to keep writing, keep reading, and until next time.